Hey guys, welcome to the next session on Oracle Source Suite Policy. So this will be a continuation class on Bpel. In the previous session we have looked at an example of Bpel. We basically understood what is business process execution language, and we have done a simple example basically to understand the skeleton of Bpel. So what it does and what are the interaction patterns, etc. So today we will look at a much I would not say complex, but a regular use case that happens in any project. So whatever we do now, like similar things happen literally everywhere. Okay, so I would be a little faster today. Maybe in the explanation I will give you, but simple things like schema creations and all, I would not waste much time because this is going to be a big example. And then we'll continue the same example in the next session also. Okay, because we would be understanding various concepts one after the other. So let me start a new Bpel process. So let me create a new SOA project, and let us give an appropriate name for this. So maybe I would say employee Bpel. Okay, and then empty composite. Okay, we're done. So let us start from first, like how a typical project would look like. So you would initially get the requirements, right? So I have created a requirement similar to how the usual project requirements would be. Okay, it can change in the wordings, but basically this is how the project requirement would be. Okay, so let's look at this and then we'll try to implement the same thing in our project. Okay, so this one says input is department ID. Okay, and then this is the output mapping document that the business has provided. So assume there is a business team and they have provided this. This is what they wanted. Okay, so they will give you the input as department ID, but the response what they need is department ID, name, city, state, temperature, full name, and salary. Okay, so you know the HR schema, right? So department ID and department name we can get from departments. Salary and full name we can get from employees. We get first name, last name, we can get the full name. But there is something, a temperature and then city, state. Okay, so um, for temperature, so if you look at the mapping document, you clearly know from where you need to get the field from. Okay, so here it says department ID. There is no source table, there is no source operation, no source field, no transformations, copy as is, meaning you just get it from the input since our input is department ID. Department name you get from the department's table, department name field. City you get it from the weather service, web service, and this is the operation and this is the field name. And similarly state, temperature, etc. Okay, and the next is each department has a fixed location. Okay, input to the weather service is location ID of the department's table. A further drill down on the requirements would say that location ID from departments, you get the location ID from, one second. Okay, so basically this would be the requirement. So business would give you abstract requirements, something like this. They say each department has a fixed location, input to weather services, location ID. Okay, but a business analyst, what he does, or a tech lead of your team, what he does is he basically converts your business requirement into a technical specification. So technical specification would be something like this, where in location ID, like in the departments table, you have something called location ID. So you get that location ID and check the locations table, okay, from where you get the zip code. Okay, and then you can pass the zip code to the weather service to get all details you want. Okay, so this is how a typical user requirement would be, and they would have already provided you the different web services that will be useful for you. So if you see full name and salary, we would be get from the get employee list by department. Okay, and if you really observe, like this is the DB adapter service that we have done. Okay, so if I open the, or let me start the servers first. Okay, So in the DB read service, we had this endpoint multi-service multi-select DB read, in which we have this response, if you remember. Like we pass in the department ID and it gives you all the employees in that department, right, with the full name and salary. So we will use this service to get the full name and salary. That's what given in the specification. So this is how you get I mean, as a SOA consultant, you will get everything on the table. The only thing that you need to do is integrate different things. Okay. So let's start doing this. So for the first thing that you need to do is building the schema, right? So for anything, and if you see this, you are sending in department ID and you're getting full name of the employee, which means in a department there would be multiple employees, right? So in your schema, this employee would be an array, okay? And then this is the location details. That would be single location for a department. So it would be only one. And then department ID name also would be only one occurrence. That's how you build up the schema. So I have already created the schema just in the interest of time. Okay. So let me copy the same thing here. Okay, so this is the schema. And if I open the schema, it makes sense to you. Okay, so here it is. So this is my input department ID. I'm good. And the output is my department name. And then under location, you have city, state, temperature. And I would say this as employee list. Okay, inside which I have employees, inside which I have this one. And this is 1 to infinite, right? So how do I do that? Okay, so this employee list can have any number of employees. Okay, so we have the schema. So this will be the input, this should be the output. Your duty is basically to get all this information from different services in an order and then get it. Why am I saying in an order? Because unless you have the zip, you cannot get the temperature, right? Because this is from the web service which takes zip. So in order to get the zip, you need a location ID. So you get it from the department service. So you need to do it in a sequence. Okay. Okay. Today what we'll do is, all these days we were just dragging and dropping the SOAP web service and selecting the schemas to create the WSDL, right? Today what we'll do is, we'll create our own WSDL, okay, so that you will also know how to create the WSDLs, and then we will create a Bpel process based on the WSDL, okay? So what is the difference between dragging and dropping the SOAP adapter and uh, using Oracle source with 12c to create the adapter, to create the WSDL, and creating the WSDL yourself is, when you create the WSDL yourself, you'll have more control over the names. Okay, so if, for example, if I show you the WSDL that is already created, okay, this is one of the WSDL, right? Look at the names here. The names are like part, multi-select, input parameters, collection. Like, it doesn't have a readable name, right? If someone looks at this, it doesn't have readable names in it. Whereas when you create the WSDL, you can give any name you want, so that it would be more easier. Okay, so how do we create a WSDL? It's very simple. So just say new and say WSDL. So a WSDL document. Okay, and I would give an appropriate name, say employee Bpel service client. Okay, and then it is a two-way interface. And what is the input? Input is in your schema. I'm sorry. Department ID is my input, and then department details is the output. Okay, you can actually rename these part names also. Like I would say output part, and similarly I would say okay, and maybe even the port types also I would say employee Bpel port. Okay, I would not go into the details, but only thing I wanted to say is I would say get employee details. The only thing is when you create your Bpel, you would have more control over it, and obviously namespace also. Like every project will have a convention for the namespaces, so you have more control rather than JDeveloper doing it for you. Okay, so I'm done. Let me create a visitor. Okay, so if you look at here, like everything is looking good. Okay, we are good. So the only thing that you have to do is drag and drop a Bpel process. Okay, and I would say employee Bpel, which is asynchronous or based on a Vistel. We already have the Vistel, right? So based on a Vistel, and then you browse for the Vistel. Okay, so where is the Vistel? So what will see, right? So what will see employee Bpel. So on Vistel. Okay, I browse the Vistel. At any point, if you lose the track, just let me know. Okay, and you can give a proper service name. I would say you can give any name, but let me leave defaults. Okay, and see when I say expose as a service, sorry, this is based on a Vistel, right? So when I click on this, it automatically creates a SOAP web service. Otherwise, I'll have to drag and drop. Okay, and when I say okay, okay, it creates me this one. And look at the operation. Till now, everything is execute, right? When we drag and drop a SOAP adapter, now it gives you better details. Okay, I'm done. So let me go to the Bpel process straight away. As I told you in the previous example, so your input will be in the receive input. So your receive activity will be the first activity, and the variable, I mean, it's a default name. You can always change the name. It doesn't matter. You can just go here and change the name. Okay. But basically your input will be in this variable. Okay. And finally, if you look at the arrow, this is going out, right? So your output variable will finally go out as a response. So it is your duty. So whatever you do between receive and reply, and you stuff this output variable with all the with all the invocations you do. You basically extract all the details and stuff this output variable so that it goes back. Okay, so let's do our requirement one by one. Okay, or let us determine the order in which we need to invoke. Okay, so for the department ID and department name, department ID is from the input only. For the department name, I need to invoke department table, right? So how do we talk to a table? Using a DB adapter. So how we want to implement is SOA developer's choice. Okay, so business will just tell you like what is the source and what is the value. That's all. Like it doesn't tell you like how you do it, whether with the web service or whether with something. I mean, they won't tell you. It's your choice. Okay, and let's say in this, okay, let's make it a little complicated. So see, let's say like you don't have access to employee table. It might happen, right? Because employee table might have some confidential information. Like there might be a table which has confidential information. So instead of directly exposing the table, your company exposes a web service. Okay, so web service exposes only very few columns which are required for you. Okay, so that the confidential information is really safe. So that web service in this case is this one. Get, that is the reason why we are using web service. Like you might have got doubt like we can directly invoke employee table, right? But why are we using web service? Maybe this is the requirement. I just want to show you different things, that's all. Okay. So what is the order? Let us do a draft version first and then do it. Okay. So for departments, or let us write here only. Here, right? For this one, I would use a DB adapter, right? Okay, I'm good. Then for these three, it is a web service call. Okay, same for the other two also. And this one is also a web service call. Okay, and let's see the order. Okay, so I get the department ID. Okay, and this get employee list by department ID takes in department ID and gives you back full name and salary, right? If you look at the web service here, definition. So if you look at the DB service definition, I'm getting some disturbance. Can you guys please mute yourself? Like whenever you have questions, you can. So this one, it basically takes in the department ID, right? So this can be the first invocation that I can make. Okay, this can be the first invocation I can make, or even I can call DB adapter also because I already have the input. Okay, so first option is your wish. Like you can make this call first, or you can make this call first. It doesn't matter. Okay, so just for simplicity, let's put this way. And for calling the web service, what you want the zip code, right? So how do you get the zip code? If you look at the HR schema, you have department ID here, correct? But you need zip ultimately, correct? For the web service. So how do I get it? So if I invoke department table, I get location ID. Okay, and using that location ID, I will invoke location table to get the zip. Okay, so this will be the order. So first I need to invoke the department using a DB adapter, get the result, and then invoke locations table using a DB adapter, get the zip. Okay, and then you will call the web service, which would be the third operation. Okay, so when you really do it, it makes more sense. Okay, because Bpel will be like a flow chart. So first thing is, let's create a DB adapter for this one. Okay, so how do I talk to a database? You need to have a DB adapter, right? So just dragging up here, and I would say departments adapter. Okay, and what is this one? This one, let me give it later. So select departments. Okay, and what I want in department, I want a location ID, right? Department name also I want, because yes, department name I want. And though location ID is not required here, but in order to derive this, we need location ID. So I'm selecting this, say next, and then I will add a parameter called department ID. Okay, so the query will be select so and so, where department ID is equal to the incoming department ID that I'll send. Say next and finish it off. Only thing is I need to create with the proper JNDI name. Connection to. Okay. Everything is fine. Similarly, what else do you want? Like we'll create all the required stuff first. Okay, or let's do one after the other. That's better. So I will wire my Bpel process to this, so that when you wire it, then your Bpel process will have a handle on it. So when I double click on this, see, this is the handle. Okay, so kind of a placeholder. I can actually talk to my DB adapter through this partner link. Okay? And how do you call a service? So if it is an adapter, but you just wired it and you got a transformation, right? But in Bpel, how do you invoke anything? You invoke any web service using the invoke activity. So it is as simple as drag and drop your invoke activity and give a proper name. In this case, I'm invoking department, correct? Departments, and just drag and drop to whatever you want. So in this case, department adapter. Okay. So when you're invoking, what are you doing? When you say I'm invoking something, what are you doing actually? You're basically sending a request and you get a response, right? So I'm creating a variable, request variable, give a proper name, invoke departments, input variable. Okay. So my request is this variable and it is my duty to stuff this variable, and the response would be in this variable. So create another variable. So internally what happens is when I click on this, internally my Oracle Source with 12c talks to this DB adapter and figures out what is the schema, and it creates a variable of that schema. Okay, and I say okay. Okay, so what happened, like I created in invoke activity, it has an input and it has an output. Okay, I'm good. But I did not stuff anything, right? Because I have the input in this variable. Okay, but I haven't stuffed this input variable. So it is my duty to copy the department ID from the input variable to the input variable of the web service. So how do I copy? You can do it either in a transform activity, or in Bpel you do it with a assign activity. Okay, so I would say assign department ID. Okay, and just double click on this. Okay, when you double click on this, this assign editor is very simple. It has all the variables on the left and all the variables on the right. You just have to map your source to destination. Okay, so what am I supposed to do here? I want to copy the inputs department ID to the department ID of the web service, right? So this is the input variable in which I have department ID, and this is the variable which is the request to the DB adapter, right? We just created it. So you just expand this and you have the department ID. Okay. Similarly, you just expand this and you have the department ID. So just map them. Okay, so it's very simple. Like you have the department ID coming from input and I'm mapping it to the input of the web service, and just say okay. Okay, so what happens now is your request will come here. Okay, and then let's say my department ID is 30. Okay, so in the assign activity, what it does is it will take 30 from this input variable and put it in the input variable of the request. Okay, so 30 goes here, and then you get all the details like the department name. Guys, can you please mute yourself? I think it's okay, or maybe I'm muting him. Is there an option to mute? Yeah. Okay, and I get all the details that the web service returns. Okay, so let me clear everything. Okay, so next what? Okay, I got, so here I will get what all do I get? I get the department name and the zip, right? So sorry, department name and location ID, correct? If you look at the definition, you will know. I'm getting the department name and location ID. Why am I getting the location ID? I want the zip, right? So I get the zip from locations table. So let's create another DB adapter for locations. Okay, and give the okay name, we will put it later. And similarly, select from locations what you want to select. Like I want the postal code. Okay, I don't care about the rest, because rest my business thing is all these three I get it from the weather service. Don't take it from so if business asks you to get it from the weather service, get it from weather service. Though you have it in the locations table, I have city and state, but I won't take it from here. I'll take from the weather service. I just need postal code. Okay, it is not there in the requirements, but your business analyst will actually talk to the business and figure out that you need to get the zip code from locations. That's how it is. So say next, and I would say that location ID, right? This is location table. So I would say and parameter location ID next and finish it up. Okay, so if I create the DB adapter, it doesn't mean that it will be available to you inside Bpel. Unless I wired it, it is not available for me. So I wire it so that it is available. Okay, and it is available doesn't mean that I'm using it. Unless I use an invoke activity to explicitly do that, it doesn't invoke it. It doesn't use it. Okay, so I have the location ID in this output variable, right? So what I need to do, I need to send that location ID to this location adapter to get the zip. So what do I do? Same, invoke activity. You are invoking locations now. Okay, so drag and drop to the location adapter, and you will create an input variable for this web service. Name could be anything, doesn't matter. I always use this standard. Okay. Say okay and finish it off. Okay, so this locations DB adapter has this input variable and this output variable. Okay, so this input variable will take location ID, right? But where is my location ID? It is there in the output variable of departments, correct? So how do I copy? Same, assign activity. So I would say assign, drag and drop assign and say location ID. Okay, and similarly when you double click, everything comes up. So where is my location ID? It's in the department's output, right? So come down. So here it is, location ID. And I want to put it to locations, var location ID. So just drag and drop. Okay. So what is the response you get? This is the response you get. Like inside location, you get a postal code, which is what you want, right? Finally. Okay. So just leave it. I'm just showing you. We are just assigning the input. Okay. So done. So what did we do till now? Okay. So I get the department ID here initially. Okay. So what did I do? I assigned the department ID to its input variable in this assign activity, and then I get a location ID here plus department name. I'm not using department name for now, but I will use this location ID to feed into this one. Okay, how do I do that? I'm sorry, I did a small mistake. Actually, this one has to be before this. Okay, it's as simple because you need to first assign, right? So what am I doing in this assign? So basically I'm using the location ID from the output of departments adapter and then assigning it to the input of locations adapter. Okay, and then I get a zip. Right, this is location ID. I get a zip. Now I can use this zip to pass to the weather service. Okay, because its operation is get city by weather zip. Okay, and get all these details. Okay, so now let's see how do we invoke this web service. Weather service is a freely available web service. It's in the internet, just like currency conversion service. So let's see if it is working first of all. Yeah, it is working. It is working. So how do we talk to a web service? Like very simple. Whenever even if your composite is down, like you can just click on this icon here. It will be available in all the components like mediator adapters everywhere. So just click on this. takes you to the composite. So it is in the composite where I need to create all the references, right? Now I want to talk to this survey. So I'll create a SOAP reference to it, and I will say weather service reference. Okay, and then this is the confirmation weather SOAP, and say, and it is asking me whether I want to download the Bpel or not. You can select anything. What is the difference? I already told you earlier, so I don't want to repeat it now. Okay, so this web service has three operations: get weather information, get city forecast by zip, set get city weather by zip. But let's look at our requirements. Our requirements say it use this operation. Okay, I'm good. But how do I use it in Bpel? It is not available here, so I need to wire it. So just wire them so that it is available in your Bpel. Okay, if you observe, slowly your Bpel is becoming larger and larger, right? And it is not good because like there are too many things you might misunderstand. So this is the point where you want to, this is the time where you want to group things, group different things. Okay, how you group? There are two ways of grouping. One is scope and the other one is sequence. Okay, sequence is very simple. Sequence is just like a grouping, and just I drag and drop. Okay, so what is the advantage? Advantage is nothing, like it just groups things. So I would say this one is what? Get department details. It doesn't do anything. It is just for readability. If some guy comes here, like he need not go inside and see, he need not go to the database and after definition and see everything. Like he will just see this sequence. Okay, he will understand. Okay, this is about department details. Okay, and then tomorrow I want to remove this, I can just click on delete and it goes off. Or if I want to move it as a group, like I can move it as a group. See, okay, so that's the advantage of a sequence. Other way of grouping is scope. Okay, now there is a small difference between sequence and scope. Okay, sequence is like a dummy boundary. Okay, nothing, it's just a container, whereas scope is like you can create variables in it. Okay, just like in your Java class you have private variables and public variables, right? Private is like it is private within that function, correct? Even in SQL also you would have private and public. Similarly, in scope also you can have local variables or global variables. Okay, so next time we will use scope this time. So let me drag and drop a scope activity here. It is all your preference, like you can use scope or sequence. It depends on your requirement. Okay, so this is my scope. I can name it as weather service. The convention I use is scope underscore weather service. Okay, and for sequence I would say sequence underscore weather service. Sequence and get department. Okay, so I created an empty scope. So what I want to do, I want to call this web service, right? Okay, so just how do I invoke a web service? Same thing, invoke activity drag and drop.
Maybe Kumar here. Kumar here.
Yeah, Kumar.
Is the scope or sequence reusable?
Reusable in the sense? No, they're not moved. Like if it is here, it is here. Another scope, you want to create a new scope.
No, that's fine. But I'm just creating a scope for getting employee details, okay,
Okay.
or get ship details like that.
Uh-huh.
Later on, the same thing I need to execute in the same further down the line. I need to execute the same set of steps,
No,
whatever
no,
that in the
you
scope
cannot
or
do that.
sequence.
Once it is
I can't call
passed,
the same scope.
no,
Okay.
no, there is no call. For the same reason,
So,
Quality has come up with something called sub-process, where
okay,
exactly your
sub
requirement.
process.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is one of the major problems with, I would not say problems because that is designed that way. It is like sequential, one after the other. So there are too many
Okay.
requirements for the functional, for reusability. That's the reason why they gave sub-processes.
Okay.
That is
So
outside the
sub-process basically serves the purpose of both the scoping as well as reusability.
Yes, sub-process is again a Bpel, okay,
Hmm.
but it can be reused. Just like You call a Java function from wherever you want, similarly.
Okay. Basically, scoping and sequence seems to be like, for me, it's just a labeling the steps. Basically, putting into a container so that the
Yes,
readability wise, you can just, without exploding, you can just read it through.
exactly. Like if it is like pretty much big, like 10 activities, you can just do this way.
Yeah.
So it will just tell you, okay, this scope gives
Uh,
department details. Like your Bpel might have
okay.
like 1,000 activities, so it's not readable, right? Okay.
More of a cosmetic
Exactly.
stuff. Okay.
Sequence is
Fine.
cosmetic, okay, but scope is
Uh-huh.
not at all. Scope is much beyond that. First thing is like it groups, but other than that, let me show you what it is. Okay, like after we do, you'll understand. Okay, so what am I doing here? Invoke weather service. Okay, and then where is the weather service? Here it is. Drag and drop, and same. Create an input variable. You can leave the name as it is, but I don't like big names. So, okay, so here, since it is a scope, it gave me option for local or global. Earlier, this local variable is like faded away. You cannot uh, use it. I mean, you cannot select it. But now, since it is inside a scope, you have an opportunity to use it local or global. What is the difference? Same like any other programming language. If it is local, it is local to that scope. What is the advantage? You have an advantage. Number one is performance, because local variables, the moment the scope goes away, like the variable is freed. Okay, so you have the memory. Next is, if you have same name, like if you have two variables of the same names, okay, you cannot have it at the global level, right? So basically it is local to itself. So you can have two scopes with the same name variable, okay, limiting to itself. So in our case, the input variable should be local to this. I mean, it can be local or global. Let's keep it local so that we are saving on some performance. Okay. And then output. Output, should I keep it local or global? I'm putting it global, but why I'm making it global, I'll tell you after some time. Okay. Like at the end of the example. So for now, my local input is local, output is global. Okay. But this local or global doesn't have any difference in assigning values. Okay, so you still have to assign your input, like you have to stuff the input, right? Unless you send it the zip, how will you get the response? So where is my zip? My zip is in the output of the locations, so I should assign it so that I send it here. So how do I assign? Using a assign activity. So if you see this, it is almost like a flow diagram only. Assign a zip. Okay, for give readable names so that when you look at the flow trace, it would be very easy. Okay, so what should I do here? Like in the locations output variable, I have the zip postal code. Okay, and then you are sending it to weather service. See, my global section shows me only output. My local section shows me input, because this is, input is local variable. Okay, so in the input, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, so here, before creating the variables, so we just directly gave, right? But if you see here operation, we have to select this operation, right? We have selected, I mean, we have selected the default option. That's the reason it's not giving. So select the appropriate operation that business asks you to do. Get city weather by zip. We did a small mistake. Okay. I'm recording this session. Okay, yes. So you select the appropriate operation. Okay. When you drag and drop and when you wire it, this comes up, right? So here you select the appropriate operation and then now create the variable. Okay, so what we will do is, since we did a mistake, like we'll go to the variable section, we will undo everything that we did. Okay, so local variable I'm deleting, and then the global variable for weather service also I'm deleting, because I created for another operation. Okay, so I'm back to the step where I just created the invoke activity. Let me click on the right operation now, click on plus, okay, and then use the name. Why I removed? Because I want to use the same name and I want it to be local. The output, I want it to be global. Okay, nice that we did a mistake so that we got to know there are multiple operations. So this is how, like when you invoke a service with multiple operations, you have to select the right operation. And after you select the operation, click on the plus icon, because only by that it will actually check the WSDL and create the variables for you. Okay, I'm done. So I need to assign the input. So let me drag and drop an assign activity and say assign zip. Okay. So where is the zip? Zip is in the locations output variable, postal code, and here it is the local variables input. Okay. So just assign these two and say okay. Nice. We're done. So what did we do? So we basically assign the input zip, and it gives me city, state, and the other one. Okay, city, state, and temperature. Okay, so are we done? Let's see. Let us create another sequence here. Sequence underscore locations. Okay, so I have three blocks: departments, from departments, locations, from locations. Like I got the weather service. Okay, what all did I get? This is fine. This is fine. City, state, temperature is fine. Okay, full name and salary. There are two options. I can directly call the employees table and do it, but since my project is not allowing direct access to employee table, I'm using the web service. Okay, you can actually, for this example, we can directly have a DB adapter. I just want to make it little different, that's all. So yeah, let's use this web service. This web service is nothing but this listed. This web service we have already done during the DB adapter. So this is how you reuse stuff, like you do it in one service. So in your project, like each one of you would have a different services, and a service built by one person, you will be using it in the other one. So this is an example. Okay. So where do I create a reference? Go to the composite and drag and drop a SOAP web service. Okay. And I would say this one is uh, employee service. Okay. Or let me not confuse. I would say full name service. Just because even the people name is also employee, I don't want to confuse. Give the WSDL. Okay. See, this is automatically generated WSDL. That is the reason the port type is like it's not readable, whereas in our case it's readable. And say okay. It is asking me whether to copy or not. I can select either. Say okay. If you import, then you can even when the DB service is down, you can work on it. Like in your case, what you do is don't import it, and then you shut down the DB read service. You will understand. Like it won't let you do it. Drag and drop full name service. And what is the input for full name service? Department ID. Correct? Okay. So how do I invoke this? Maybe after this, I want to create another scope, because you segment your application in such a way that it's very readable. Like if I have everything minimized, I don't see the internal details, but as a business consultant, I can clearly see that, okay, I'm getting departments, then locations, then weather service. Yeah, it's good. Okay, this is how it has to be. So just drag and drop a scope activity, and I would say scope underscore full name service. Okay, and then how do you invoke? You just drag and drop an invoke activity. Just say invoke underscore full name. Okay, and then okay, your Bpel process has become so huge that you are not able to find where is the reference. Okay, so if you are not able to like find, or um, if you're or if you don't have a mouse, like it's very tough to like drag and drop with hand, right? So in that case, you can even double click on this. Okay, and Click on the partner link. Which one you want? Full name service. It's as simple as that. It has only one operation. Input variable, I would say full name input variable. Give a proper name, and I would keep it local, and output I would keep it global. Okay. Yep. And what is the input? What is the input for this department? Okay. So where is the department ID? Department ID is in my input only, right? My input variable only contains it. So I can copy the department ID here into this. So you drag and drop an assign activity and say assign department ID. Okay. And then it is there in my input. Here it is in my local variable. Okay. Yep. So there is one thing that you can observe, like even here we have copied the department ID into the department's DB adapter, and here also we are doing almost the same thing, but we are copying the department ID to a different service, right? So if you want to have as less activities as possible, then you can actually do this assignment here itself. Like you can do it in any assignment as long as it is the assignment is happening before the actual invoke activity. You're good. Like, so I can have this assigned here also, it doesn't matter. Okay, just like in your program, you assign it in 5th line or 7th line, doesn't matter as long as execution is happening in 10th line, right? Similar thing. Okay, so now even these details also I got. Okay, so like if I execute this program, like will I get the output variable? I mean, will I get everything in the output variable? So let's see. No. Okay, let me minimize it so that I see the whole thing. Or let's do one thing, right? See, it has become so big, so I will minimize everything. So that, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. So I have department name here, and then this location, I get a location ID, which I'm using to get city, state, and then temperature, right? And then here I will have full name and salary. And remember, this is like an array of employees, right? All employees in that department. So this is like infinity. I'm just kidding. And this one is like dummy. We are not using this variable anywhere, just to get the location zip code and send it to here. Okay. So these are our output variable. Okay. We have got everything. So if I deploy this, what is the response I get? Okay, let me do one thing. I will deploy, and I'm giving you a hint that you don't get the response. Just try to uh, understand like why you wouldn't get any response, though we have done everything. Okay, let me deploy it for you.
Ravi, Ravi, you have not mapped the output variable, right? So
Exactly.
that might
Yes.
be the reason.
Yeah, that is the exact reason why you wouldn't get the output. Okay, so that's the exact reason. That's what I wanted to show you. So see, reply output is basically sending you the output variable, right? So it is your duty to stuff this output variable. So even if you have derived literally everything, if you don't stuff this output variable, like you wouldn't get anything, because ultimately this is what is going out. Okay, so this is what your client sees. So that is the reason why you wouldn't get anything as the output. So if I execute it, then maybe you'll see. Or let's do it in SOAP UI. okay, because we'll have a list, right? So here's the Bristol. You get the Bristol from EM. Just open your composite and you get the Bristol. Here is a what happened. Display. Oh, okay. I think initially, okay. Connection pool name, like initially when we created, we didn't give the proper connection pool name here. So that's the reason. Great.
Ravi, please capture that what we call the error message also.
Oh, okay. You want to see the message? Yes. It will clearly tell you that the JNDA name, see, location JNDA is not, it is not unable to fetch because obviously that is not set, right? That's the default name. So okay, employee, okay. When I click on test, I get the Bristol. So use this Bristol. This complete request. And then let me use a value department ID as 30. Okay, and when I click on this, okay, it is executing. Here you see the processing one. Okay, and see, your response is literally dummy, like it's open and close tag here. But if I want to look at the flow trace, just click on the Bpel, go to flow instances. It gives you option like last 24 hours. Okay, click on employee Bpel, go to the flow. See, so it first invoked department and then it got the value. Location ID is 1700 and department name is purchasing. Okay, and then it assigned the location ID to the input variable and then invoke locations. So you got the postal code, and then here in the weather service, see, input is your zip, which is the postal code, and output is you got Seattle, Washington, Seattle, and then temperature is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, that's good. And then full name also, you would have got all the employees in the department. Okay, 6 or 7. But what is that's finally returned? The finally returned one is output variable. So it's your duty to stub the output variable. Just to show this one, I haven't stubbed anything. Okay, so see, now my output variable requires the values from different variables, right? So in this output variable, I need department name, correct? And then location, okay, I'm not using it here. And from the weather service output variable, I have city, state, and temperature. And similarly, full name, I have full name of different employees, okay? So I have three variables as a source, one variable as the output. One thing is you can create an assign, and I would say assign what assign output var, okay? And what I can do is, so departments, I have department name, this one, and then weather service output, I have city, state, and temperature, and then full name, I have a list of employees, okay? One thing I can do is, I have the output variable here, I can stuff in, like I can directly do this, like department ID to department ID, name to name, and then under location, city, state, okay, and then for each would be there somewhere here in the activity, like here for each employee you can do that. You can do this, but since this is like it is getting it from like multiple variables, it's not really readable, right? If some guys come here, like it will be too confusing, since here there are only 7, but in your real world there would be like 50 or 60 variable assignments. So assign is not really readable, okay, so I won't use it. There is another way of doing the assignments, how we are doing till now, like in mediators, that is transform activity. So go to Oracle extensions, there is something called accessory transform, okay? And in your projects, like most of the times, unless it is an assign on the invoke activities, like you do literally all the assignments in transformations only, because it's very readable, okay? And I would say assign output, okay? And what is my what are the sources for this? Like what are the sources? I have three output variables as my source, correct? So department output variable is one source, and then weather service output is one source, full name output is one source, okay? And what is my target? My target should be output variable. That is where I am assigning, right? And just say, give a proper name, okay? I would say underscore output, and just say, okay. Sometimes you might get error here because it will try to get the schema details to construct this. When you get an error, like just see all the services are up and running, and then redo it. It will come. Okay. So this is my output. I would do the same thing here. Like first of all, expand everything so that it's easy. Okay. Department name to name, ID to ID. ID you can copy from the input, or anyways here also you get it. So if you want input, then you have to assign data also as a source and do it. Temperature, okay. And then now let me minimize this, and then now comes the major thing, employee. Now employee, this is a list, right? And here also it is a list. So how do you do it? Like you use a for each. So drag and drop for each on the employee, okay, just hover nearby and it gives you this icon. So basically what, for each incoming employee, see, you get only one employee list, but inside one employee list you have multiple employees. So whichever is repeating, that one you do it. So for each repeating element, okay, what you want to assign? I want to assign my full name and then salary. Okay, here email is not there, I'm not doing it, but maybe for email you would have to invoke another service and do it. Okay. So I'm done. So I have assigned my output. Okay. So my output is stuffed here, and the same output will go as the output of my final reply activity, which is good. So let me deploy it. I'm deploying it as the same revision because the previous one doesn't make sense. Why is this deploying? But anyways, okay. So let me redo it. There you go. So here it is. All this is header, so you can just ignore for now. So department ID, name, and then location. Okay, everything is good. And then this is the employee list. Okay. Maybe as an assignment, what you can do is, this is in Fahrenheit, right? So there might be a freely available web service which converts Fahrenheit to centigrade. So you pass this value to the service and get it in centigrade, so that you try to use as many things as possible. Okay. This is how a Bpel works. It's simple. It's almost like a flow chart. Okay, wherein you're doing everything one after the other. Okay, so let me spend another 5 minutes to show you another activity. Any questions till now? So it's very simple. It's basically working with variables. You stuff the input, get the output, that's all. And obviously you need to know the business process, like what to invoke and in which order you want to invoke. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is also one of the most frequently used things. Okay, let's say I have, this is my Bpel start. I have one service invocation, just like our things, like different scopes or different invokes. Okay, and then I am end. Okay, so this is start, this is end. Let's say this takes like 15 seconds, this takes 20 seconds, this takes like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, for example. Okay, so what is the total execution time? Like 35, 45, 50 seconds is the total execution time, right? Okay, that's good. Like fair enough. I mean, if it takes 50 seconds, that's okay. But there might be some invocations which doesn't depend on the other ones. Okay, in our case, like I can invoke departments and I can invoke full name service, like in parallel, right? They both are not dependent. I cannot invoke locations in parallel to departments because locations need a location ID which will come only after this. And then weather service happens only after location. So these three things I cannot do it in parallel because they have to be in sequential one after the other. But full name service is completely independent of departments, right? So it can happen before this, okay, or it can happen after this, or so as long as you do it sequentially, it doesn't matter, like every time it is taking 50 seconds. Okay, so instead, let's say these two can be done independently. Maybe I can do my Bpel process something like this, right? And so this takes 5 seconds. Okay, these two are okay. So now this takes 20 and this takes 15. So what is my overall execution? So it starts here, like this finishes in 15 seconds, but the control here waits till the other one is also finished. Okay, so the total time taken by these two processes is just 20 seconds. 10 and 5 is how much? Like 35. Okay, so this way you can actually decrease the time of execution. So you figure out within your Bpel process which all you can do it in flow or in parallel and then do it. So how do you do it in parallel? Like if you want to do it in Java, you want to implement multi-threading, right? And you know how difficult it is. In here, it's damn simple. So just check for the flow activity here, drag and drop. You can put it anywhere. Okay. Another advantage of having a sequence, you just drag and drop the whole thing. Like here it has only 2 activities, but let's say it has 20 activities, everything gets inside. Similarly, full name service, get here, done. As simple as that. So these two execute in a flow. You can have as many flows as possible. Just click on this and it comes up. Okay, and let's say you have some upcoming requirement for which you want to keep a placeholder. Okay, so you're going on a leave, so you want to tell your friend, okay, I've kept a placeholder, so you implement your code there. So for doing the placeholder, there is an activity called empty. It literally does nothing. That is the reason it is called empty. Okay, it is just a placeholder. Why is it important? It's important because sometimes at this point you might not know what is the logic to be implemented, but at a later point of time you will know it. Okay, so just to have a placeholder, you can use this activity. I'm just putting it here. Okay, so and let me deploy it as version 1.1. Okay, see, I'm not changing. Observe one thing. I'm not changing the visitor URL, and then when I click on this, okay, I got a response. The response will be absolutely same. The only thing is the way it gets executed will be different. You should get one question here. After this, I'll go through that. Okay, see, now employee Bpel 1.1 is something I just deployed, right? But when I created the SoapUI project, I used the WSDL of previous version 1.0. Okay, but how come when I use the same WSDL, it has invoked the latest one? Because there is something called a default revision. Okay, so if I click on the partition name and go to deploy composites, you see a green circle. Okay, and wherever there is a green circle, that means it is a default. Okay, so when you don't use any revision numbers in your URL, it goes to the default application, and default is always whatever you deploy the latest, or you can go here and then you can actually change the default. Somewhere you do it. Where do you do it? There should be option somewhere. Okay, I'll tell you that how to do that later. I think some problem with the administrative privileges, but still, okay. So the point here is I mean, if there is no revision number, then it directly goes to your default revision. Okay, and default would be always the latest deployed one by default, unless you modify it. Okay, so now if I go to my previous revision, click on this and check the WSDL. See, now the revision comes. Okay, so that is the reason why it has gone to the default revision. Okay, so if I want to invoke my 1.0, then I have to give the all the non-default, you have to give the revision number, as simple as that. Okay, so that is one thing you might have to observe, because in your projects, like as in when you do a changes, you deploy it, right? Sometimes you feel like you did the change but that it's not reflecting, then just check the default revision. Okay, so that's all for today. It's been a like longer session. But we have covered most of the things. So tomorrow what we will do is, in the same example, since we have multiple names here, so for each name, if you want to invoke another service, okay, what I mean is this has like 6 employees, right? So for each employee, if you want to invoke a service to get, let's say salary is there, right? Salary, let's say it is in dollars, okay? You want to get it in rupees. So you need to invoke a currency converter service. But you cannot put it here. The invoke activity cannot be here because you want to do that for each employee. Okay, that is when you will use a flow activity or for each activity. Sorry, not flow, for each activity. So what you do is inside the for each, you will loop through each and every uh, employee and then invoke the service. So we will do that, and then we will look at something called DVM. which is quite normally used, and then we'll look at the exception handling. Okay, so that takes like another 2 sessions to, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 sessions. Or tomorrow, let's do a little longer session. Okay, maybe just prepare for like 1.5 hour to 2 hour session so that we will finish off both the concepts. Okay, and if guys in India are okay, like shall we do tomorrow's session at 9 o'clock? Is that fine? 9 o'clock would be your what?
Ravi, 8:30 I have to go to office actually.
Oh, okay.
So 7 to 8:30 would be fine.
Yep, 7 is what? Yeah, 7. No, right now, when is the class? When is the session starting? Let me stop the recording.
Yeah, 7 o'clock.